Hey, welcome to Relatable, Relationships Unfiltered. Today I'm hanging out with Ken Canion, certified relationship and personal development coach. We're talking about the infamous booty call and what to do if you want that booty call to become more. This is Relatable, Relationships Unfiltered. Hello, Ken. How are you?
Dr. Liz, how are you?
I'm doing well. I am so honored that you have come to hang out with me today. I appreciate that greatly.
I'm honored that you invited me. And I figured, why not hang out? Let's just talk about relationships and all kinds of stuff.
Let's do it. Yeah, your Instagram, and I know you have an active TikTok presence as well, but your Instagram is what I'm mostly on. Your videos are, first of all, like on topics that are so relevant, but then they're also done in such a way that it is entertaining and just really applicable information. So grateful for that. And, how did you get into doing what you're doing?
Long story short, I've been married 22 years, and about 15 years ago, my wife and I, we just couldn't get along. Headed for a divorce court. I always tell people, I said, listen, I couldn't stand her. She couldn't stand me. We couldn't communicate anything. Everything she said, I didn't like, and everything I said, she didn't like. And so we went through a process where we had to rediscover who we were in the relationship. Now, we thought we knew who we were outside, but then, we had to rediscover. We both had evolved, and we really didn't like each other. And long story short, what we did was, one day I did a video called "How $7 Saved My Marriage," and one day we were out, we were just arguing, and she said, "Let's go for a ride." We pulled into a Wendy's parking lot. I only had $7 to my name. I had just gotten off a reality show, and she said, "Pull over in the parking space," and I'll never forget it. By the way, what I need to tell you about that is when we went to the drive-through, we ordered, I think, they had 2 bacon cheeseburger specials at $2.99, just enough, under $7. And then when we went in, she said, "Pull over in the parking space." And I was like, "For what?" And she said, "Because we need to figure some stuff out." By this time, I didn't want to talk to her, but we pulled over there. We stayed there 2 hours and 42 minutes. And she said, "We're going to stay here till we figure out what's wrong with us." And during that conversation, I realized a whole lot about me, I was a terrible communicator. She was too, had a lot of childhood stuff. And that day, we essentially came up with a conflict resolution system that saved our marriage, and that's helped me save hundreds of other marriages. So that's kind of how I got into it. And I figured it was a bigger purpose than that. And booty call, we're going to talk about it tonight, but I wanted to just kind of make amends for a lot of the shit that I did prior to getting married, and all the contribution I did to low self-esteem and stuff like that. So that's another conversation, but yeah, that's how I got into it.
Well, I love that it comes from personal experience, because that is also, and I'm very open about that I got into the work that I do as a relationship expert as well because of my own relationship difficulties and my ongoing relationship difficulties. And to be honest, that I continue to experience in a lot of ways. It's just the knowledge is different and the way I approach it is different. And, each time I'm up against a situation, like I have new information and new experience, which I'm sure you can relate to
Sure.
in your marriage. But I do think that, when we're meeting our clients with our own personal knowledge and experience, that often just goes a lot further in being relatable and being just able to connect with them. So I don't know, has that been your experience of?
It has. I often say, look, the truth is life is a great teacher, especially when you learn the lesson. And you know it, Doc, how many times have you not learned a lesson and you had to repeat it? Because what I try to do is, okay, what did I glean from this? What did I learn from this? And how can I use this moving forward? But so many of us get stuck in the past thinking about what went wrong instead of what I can learn. how I can move forward from it. I imagine that's in your case. Have you had some situations like that?
For sure. And then also like being able to give yourself grace and patience around a lot of times we don't give ourselves credit for like, okay, maybe I ended up in a similar fucked up situation again. Like, what the hell is wrong with me? But we don't stop to look and say, like, okay, but I was in the situation for half the time than I was the previous, before I caught in a relapse.
Right.
Or,
Right.
like the parts that are progress that we're so quick to look past and just say, what's wrong with me versus, no, I actually did this one better. I actually showed
Yes.
improvement, even if it still wasn't perfect.
Yes, that is a fantastic way to look at it. And I was telling a client today, I said, when you look at situations through the lens of what is wrong, what I did wrong, instead of what I did right, that's how people can look at the same situation and glean something different. One person looks at it and it becomes a growth opportunity. Another person looks at it and then they get stuck in a rut because they keep asking endless loop questions. Why did this happen? What did I do wrong? Why does this shit keep happening to me? Why do I keep attracting the wrong person? Instead of doing exactly what you just said. Okay, I did this half the time than I normally do. That's growth. Yeah. Damn it, I'm ready to roll.
All right. Then we're like, next time even less, or maybe not at all. But hey, we'll see.
Right.
So let's talk about the booty call, because that is, and I think our more modern day term for that even being the situationship, though, as Melissa, our producer, pointed out, there is still a distinction between the booty call and the situationship. So let's talk about where do you want to start? How would you define the booty call? Let's start there.
Okay, so now it could be semantics. Shit, they're similar. They're so close. Okay, if there was any different, I would say a situationship is where we think and we act like this shit is going to go further, but we know it's not.
Yeah.
Okay. A booty call, we just know what it is. We call it what it is. I think if that's the nuanced difference, a lot of us, we actually try to fool ourselves and think situationships are going to end up in relationships. And so that's why we call them situationships, as opposed to the booty call. You just come over, let's smash. Let's do what we do. You go about doing your thing. And in a booty call, you may have someone else. I may have someone else. We understand what this is, and we've made it very clear what it is. I think that's the nuanced difference, if you would ask me.
No, I completely agree. With the booty call, though, in your either personal experience with clients, do most people, and do all genders equally, are they able to keep that distinction between like this just is what it is versus does it seem like there's maybe one person who's like, okay, this is what it is until I can kind of trick you into more? That's
right. Okay. So you know what, Doc? So listen, Doc. I'm going to turn that question around on you.
Oh, all great.
Right. So I'm going to turn that one around on you, because have you ever seen a situation, okay, where you go into it and the guy or the lady, either one, this is not gender specific, says, you know what? I just want to kick it. We don't have to have a title. We know what we are. Let's just see where it goes. Okay. So you hear that. The person that wants the relationship, that might want the relationship, says, opportunity. If I do these things, then I feel like I can change them. I can change it and I can make it work to my favor. Well, what happens is they create an illusion. And this illusion that they create is a mental and emotional conundrum that takes them, that helps them spiral downward emotionally, because what happens is it's almost like cognitive dissonance. It's your behavior is really, you're acting different than what you really want.
Right.
And so you don't know how to navigate it. So what do? You just keep doing the same shit.
Yeah. On loop. Yeah, that's a fact, my friend. That is exactly what happens. Right. And I think that the issue with that is that a lot of people, like with a booty call or with friends with benefits or whatever term, right, the idea is that there's not expectations on it, that you're not putting expectations on each other. Okay. So I've come to realize I completely suck at situationships because I have expectations. So if you are in my life, if you are an active presence in my life, I have expectations.
Right.
And I think that that's where, it ends up really not going well for a lot of people. Now, there's plenty of people who figure it out and maybe can be effective, but that expectation piece tends to be an issue.
And I think you nailed it. I think we fool ourselves thinking that I don't have to have any expectations. We'll just let it go with the flow.
Right.
But in reality, if you think about now, this is not everybody. I don't want to generalize and say every single person, right? But 90% of the people, I want to, because some people can okay, they can go with the flow and this is what we do. It's a physical relationship. We get with each other. We have great sex together and that's all it is. However, most people don't understand this part of it. They don't understand that whether you choose to deny it or not, when sex gets involved, there is a physical component. There's also a biological component. So when sex happens, there's a release of hormones, the oxytocin, the dopamine, and then the opiates and even serotonin that play a significant role in it. In other words, the young people say you catch feelings. I didn't intend to. I didn't intend to catch feelings, but that's what happens. And people really think that, what won't happen to me. I can deal with it. Come on, this is physiology. This is biology.
Right.
You're not different.
Yeah, you're not getting one over on that.
Right. No.
Yeah. No, and I agree. And that's exactly what I explain to a lot of my clients when they talk about why they have such a hard time then moving on from it. So let's say they do recognize this isn't good for me. This isn't good for my mental health. I need to be done with this. But then they're like, why can't I remove myself from it? Why is it so hard? And all of those hormones that are released create almost this addiction to it. And
Correct.
That intermittent reward system of the slot machine that you get the payout every time you go to that booty call, it's really hard to remove yourself from. In your professional opinion, do you think that the booty call is an unhealthy behavior?
So let me answer that by saying this. Four words I don't use in my practice. My coaching practice, I don't use 4 words. I don't use something as good or bad or right or wrong. I avoid those words.
Yeah.
And the reason, because what's right for Dr. Liz might be wrong for Coach Ken.
Agreed.
What's good for Coach Ken might not be good for Dr. Liz. So what I focus on 2 things. Is it working or not working for you?
Okay.
So when you focus on, is it working or not working? So for some people, it works. Okay. Some guys I know, okay, look, let me hit that booty. It's good. I'm going to come a few times and I'm going to go about my way. Okay. Some people, it doesn't work. And so what I say is it diminishes you emotionally when it stops to work for you mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I would say I guess to answer your question, for some, it's cool. You know what? And if both partners understand what this is and what we're doing, and also I would say understand the effects of it, and some people just keep it compartmentalized in what it is. So, but for the vast majority of people are looking for love. People can say what the fuck they want to say. Yep. But at the end of the day, we are wired to love.
Yeah.
We are wired to, people want to love. People want, now, how we go about getting that sometimes,
Yeah.
That's why you and I have great jobs.
Right. Right. And that connection piece, I absolutely agree. And I think that is why why people get into the booty call or situationship to begin with, because we are wired for that connection. And so while maybe our part of us is really emotionally unavailable, or we are really afraid of rejection or abandonment, and to your point about the cognitive dissonance, that's exactly when it kicks in, because we're like, no way, I'm not getting close enough to let you hurt me. That's what we think. That's not really how these things play out. But then when we then get into it, we want the connection piece of it. And so, or as you're saying, the love of it. But either way, we want to be accepted. We want the affection and all of those things. And the reason I asked you that question, because I completely agree. And I do not, right or wrong, I don't agree with that either, or the term normal. Like, what the hell is that?
Right.
But there's been a lot of, I've seen more and more backlash, or that's not even, I guess, criticism of the situationship on social media as of late, that there's been this opinion about how dysfunctional and unhealthy it is. And I haven't really fully sat with and reflected on that, but it has had my wheels turning of like, I really don't think that's a fair label or fair criticism to cast. If, as you're saying, it does work for some people, maybe they travel a lot for work, or maybe they have family situations, or whatever their personal situation, that's what makes sense for them. That's maybe what makes sense for them.
And so the reason I look at that is it dysfunctional for a person not to have a car and they just want to take Uber everywhere? For some, that seems dysfunctional. Okay. Right. For others who don't want a car, they don't want the maintenance. They don't want, I'm just using that as an example. It may be a primitive example, but and so we're looking through the lens of our experiences, our cognitive biases. So we're looking through this lens and we're saying, for me, this is what I want. And because you like that, it is dysfunctional for you to like it because I don't like it.
Yes.
And so I am not a proponent of that. I have my own beliefs, what works for me in my relationship. But at the end of the day, as a coach, my job is to help you do what works for you, to take you to that place of emotional fulfillment, whatever that looks like. Now, if it's against something that I believe in doing, I won't do. But for the most part, my job is, I often say this, Doc, I often say you can't help who you love, but you can help how you love. Yeah. And that's what I do.
Yes. And I completely agree. So if somebody is listening and they're like, okay, cool, y'all, but also I don't want to be in the situationship. Like, I wanted to go to this next step. You have a post on like the, what is it? The 4 steps from booty call to girlfriend
to boyfriend. I was trying to figure out the wording on that, for people to click on it. But because I was going to say from casual to committed relationship, but I was like, nah, let me be.
No, clickbait.
Clickbait.
Yeah, so much that Melissa is like, that's what we're using for the title of his episode.
Right.
So what are the steps? If somebody is deciding, this just isn't working, I like them more than that, where do they start?
First thing they've got to do is they've got to decide that this thing that I desire is more important than what I'm doing. Because what will happen is somebody may say, I want this other thing, but I keep exhibiting the behavior of the thing that I've been doing. And so if I don't want a booty call anymore, but yet I keep going over and we're doing everything that you can imagine, well, what happens is the other person has a mental image. It's almost like what I teach people in terms of your brand. Everybody's got a personal brand. All right. A brand is nothing more than a mental imprint that someone has about who you are, what you do, and what makes you different. Okay. So if my mental imprint about you is, if when I think of Dr. Liz, my mental imprint, she comes over at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. We do what we do. We might eat. She goes home. She never spends the night. Well, that's the brand. That is what your brand represents to me. And so if a person wants to change that, number one, they've got to decide that the behavior I'm exhibiting has to stop. I've got to cut off the oxygen. Right. Number two, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, let's break down number one for a second, because I mean, that's a great point. And the other piece of that is that, and maybe I'm getting ahead, so cut me off if this goes into your next point, but the communication piece of that.
That's number
Your
two.
next, okay.
That's number two.
Then I'll have a point after that one.
Yeah,
Okay,
that is number two. All right. And number one, you have to decide.
Okay.
Number two is you must be willing to communicate your decision.
Yes.
You must be not only communicate your decision, but communicate why you decided it. So a lot of people don't say anything. They just say, okay, I'm going to just ghost them. They're not giving me my way. I ain't no booty call. I'm going to just ghost them. And then the other person is like, wait a minute. What the hell happened? We've been doing this for a year, 2 years. And now you just cut me. They don't understand it. And so what I tell people is I show them how to communicate it and then tell them why you're communicating it. Because a lot of times, there was a quick study. I want to tell you this real quickly, Doc. Yeah. They did a study years ago, and they said, they put, I think it was 100 people, and they said, hey, and they asked the people, would you let me cut in front of you in line? All right. They asked the people, hey, can I just jump in front of you? Right. And only 29% of the people said yes, 21% said, yes, you can get in front of me without an explanation why. So they added in the explanation why. I need to jump in front of you. Can I jump in front of you? My wife is in labor. She's going to the hospital. It jumped all the way up to 88% with just the reasoning why I want to jump in front of you. I'm not saying that the person's going to end the booty call. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is adding the component why does a couple of things mentally for the person and for you that I want to change this brand.
Can we just talk real quick about that 12% of assholes that said no to the guy with his wife in labor? Like, what the fuck is that?
Right. I get it. All right. I get it.
But yeah, so the why, what would be an example of a why? Because I could see that becoming, those really like long-winded, like over-explaining. What would like a concise why look like for somebody?
Okay, so it's simple. I say the truth is, so like if you and I are talking, and I want to tell you, hey, we got to stop smashing, Doc. You're
gonna call me Doc when you say that? Okay,
awesome. So I would say to you, hey, the truth is, I care about you. I do. I love our physical connection. However, where I am in my life, I want something more. I want an emotional and mental connection that leads to a committed relationship. And as much as I care about you right now, the way we're interacting, it can't happen this way. And I know we started this way, but it no longer fits into my core value system. And that's why I want to move.
Yeah, no, and that's perfect. And I think keeping it to that is so important, because when I hear my clients, have these type of hard conversations and they start talking in circles, and then they, like a lot of the codependency behaviors come out, and it becomes this big mess of the other person is like, okay, what are you actually saying? What's going on here?
What are you saying?
Yeah. So
I've seen that. I've seen it. I'm like, what the fuck? What'd you just say?
Yeah, it makes it so convoluted, because it's like, okay, so are we still having sex or not? Like, what's going on here? Versus, just that clarity around, like, that's not working for me anymore. That's not what I want. And so then I assume stating what we do want is maybe.
No, you always want to state what you want. Do you never want? See, and that's the mistake a lot of people make. And they don't state what they want. They want the other person to figure it out. Okay. Yeah. And the reason they don't state what they want is because they might not get it. They might not get it. So they're afraid to say it.
Yep. That fear of rejection. Yeah.
Yes. Sure. Yes. And so that's how I would do it. I got to ask you this though. When your clients do that, and they're just beating around the bush, and you're like, okay, are we there yet? How do you handle that?
Oh, what you see here is what you see in session is what, like, I'm very upfront and transparent. Like, I'll probably give them shit about it. Like, okay, what's your point here? Like, get to the point. Or if they're telling me a story of like, how they handled it with somebody, or they're reading me a text of how they handled it, I'll usually be just very transparent of like, okay, where do you think they could have got confused in there? Or like, where do you think you maybe could have like cut that short or, you know, done that differently? So yeah, I'm not one to sugarcoat. Like we're gonna, because I mean, as you know, especially clients who seek out coaching are usually really motivated for change. And so if we then waste their time with sugarcoating, like that's not a good use of their resources. So
it is not.
How do you call them out?
Same way.
Yeah.
The same way. But what I do that I've come to that is effective for me is I'll take the client. And so a lot of times when I hear stuff, I'm like, I don't make any face in there. And they're wondering, well, coach, what do you think? And then I said, okay, here's what I did this today. I said, all right, let's do role reversal. I'm the coach. I mean, you're the coach, I'm the client. And I go through what they tell me.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you hear? They're looking at me like, damn, really? I hear a person who sounds like they're begging, who's not being concise with their point. I said, that's what I hear too. And then what we do is we go over exactly how to get to where they want to be, the messaging, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I do it.
In a way that is, I would say statistically speaking, not always, but probably a majority of our clients are going to fall more on the codependency spectrum than the narcissism spectrum because, well, we know who seeks help. We know who's more likely to take ownership. And, you know, narcissistic tendencies, whatever, the selfish tendency, we're not seeing a whole lot of that. And so a lot of our clients, like, they want to make things better. They want to fix things, but they also don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. And so that is so often, you know, what I see in my practice. And so a big part of being concise is the boundary setting and the being able to say what you mean and mean what you say and know that that doesn't mean you're being mean. There's a lot of means in there, but you get what I mean? That like, that feels like you're being mean because you're saying like, I know we've been only sex for the last year, but that's not working for me anymore. In their mind, they're thinking, well, that's going to hurt their feelings versus how is this making me feel to continue to stay in this dynamic?
That is so true. That is so true. And so I just got out of a communication class that I did for 9 weeks. And one of the most important things is that I tell people is you're not responsible for another person's feelings. You're not responsible for their emotions. And what I say, because the truth is, I said, your responsibility is to communicate effectively.
Right.
And so, because a lot of us don't communicate because we're worried about what the other person is going to feel or think based on what I have to say.
Yep.
And with that thought process, what happens? I keep it to myself. And lack of communication always leads to miscommunication.
Right. And we keep it to ourselves. And so then we stay in situations that make us resentful. And then we end up with this whole host of issues that in a lot of ways we've created and is within our circle of control in a very, blunt way. Obviously, there's a lot more nuance to that. But that's also what I try to empower my clients to see is that if you're not communicating it, then you really are either creating or perpetuating the pain being caused or the hurt being caused because they don't know that. So
that is so true.
I think that's crucial. Okay. What's step number 3 though?
So step number 3 is you have to begin exhibiting. I always call it act as if. Step 3 is you begin exhibiting the behaviors based on what you want, not what you were doing. So if you want a relationship, you got to start acting like you want a relationship. I'm not coming over your house anymore. I have to cut off the oxygen. You know what? We cannot do what it is. And of course, the other person, because your brain your subconscious is a habitual mind. We've been having sex every week about this time, and you're going to want to do it. You're going to want to go back. So what we have to do is essentially interrupt the patterns. It's a pattern you've created. And so what I teach them is how we interrupt the pattern. And so that you can begin doing something different until we condition a new pattern.
How do we do that? Like scheduling something during that time or creating distraction, or what would be your suggestions for that?
One of the ways that I do it is for instance, number 1 is being conscious of the pattern. Okay. He calls me at this time. I want to call him when I get lonely about 10 o'clock. And one of the ways that you interrupt the pattern is by doing something else. Okay. First thing, you got to be conscious of it. I remember I lost 170 pounds. I used to weigh 430 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And I remember it wasn't until I recognized my pattern of when I would do something good. I know, people eat when they do something bad, but I would eat when I would do something good. I'm like, I reward myself. And I didn't realize that it was a pattern. And I always felt bad afterwards. And I go through this spiral, the spiral downward. Yeah. And then what I did was, and I interrupted the pattern, is instead of rewarding myself with food, I'd go buy myself something, an outfit or a piece of jewelry or whatever. Yeah, because I knew I wasn't going to get addicted to the jewelry, but it was just interrupting the damn pattern. Right. And so, that's been 14 years ago.
Wow, that's incredible. That takes a whole lot of self-discipline, willpower, self-awareness. I mean,
but now I've conditioned a new behavior, though.
Yeah.
Because I've got leverage on myself because there's so much pain with it. And so that's another thing I help them to do, interrupting the pattern by helping them get leverage on themselves. What is it going to cost you if I keep doing this? Mm. And so when we get leverage on a person, all it is this. I'm back and forth with this, their mind, and back and forth until all of a sudden I got it. The shit they just click one day. Damn it, coach, I'm not going to get another man if I keep fucking this man. All right, now we ready to roll.
Got him.
Got him.
And what is step number 4 then?
No, step number 3 and 4 are the same.
Oh, the same. Okay.
And interrupt the pattern is 3.
Okay.
And then number 4, I begin exhibiting new behaviors that I can condition my subconscious mind.
Okay, perfect. And I love that. That's a big part of, very similar to the work that I do. It's about self-awareness, identifying. So where is this behavior coming from? Identifying the behaviors that need to change and how to change it. And then allowing time for adaptation. So allowing yourself to get used to, okay, I'm not going to go have sex at 10 o'clock every Thursday night. Like, yeah, that sucks, but I can, adapt to that. We can adapt really to anything. But the other piece of this is that when you are having that conversation with the person, it comes down to this, like, they have the choice. It's an acceptance or change thing. Like, they have the choice to either accept that this is what you're saying, or they might choose to not be with you anymore. And it's that awareness that regardless of what their response is, you already have that awareness going into it, and you are confident in what your stance is. I think what happens so frequently is that people will have that conversation, and if that's not what the other person wants, and maybe that other person is a pretty effective, smooth talker, that, there can be very quickly, okay, let's just do it one more time. And then next week we'll start, something like that often perpetuates it. So how do you help your clients with that?
So I have a saying. I said, when you fall off the wagon, and you will, jump back on as quickly as you can. I go back to the weight loss that I had. I remember after I lost the weight, I used to go around the country speaking on health and wellness because, just like a person who finds God, I want to just tell everybody, right? Yeah. And so I crafted these 5 beliefs, these 5 tenets that I would live by. And one of the number 5, the 5th tenet was this, that when you fall off the wagon, I didn't say if. Notice I didn't say if. Yeah. I said, when you fall off the wagon, jump back on as quickly as you can. Because here's why. So when I fall off, we go through a cycle, beat myself up, stay there, fuck it. I might as well eat everything because I've already messed up. Right. So then I start doing all of the behaviors that take me back. The reason why I tell people to get back on the new behavior quickly as possible is because I'm conditioning my mind to the new behavior. One time will never kill me. But if I'm reconditioning a thought process, a belief system. And so the quicker I can get back on, the quicker I can solidify that conditioning. Right. So if you go back and you have sex, don't beat yourself. Okay, Let's go from here. What did we do wrong? Let's analyze what happened. He called. I was feeling this. What was going on? Next time, do I need to go over my girl's house and stay over there all night and say, Dr. Liz, listen, can you watch?
can, can you babysit me so I stop having wild sex every Thursday night? I mean, that is so true though. Like, what do you have to put in place? How can you be proactive so that you aren't falling, whether it's with weight loss or relationships or whatever that behavior is that you're trying to change? When you can identify what the triggers are, you can identify what the thing that often creates the setback is for you, you can be proactive to that. And so if you know that you're often feeling lonely and that's what's leading you back to it, then have some things in place to prevent that. But on the flip side of this, if somebody's listening and they're like, nah, this is what I like. I'm into it. It's cool. What suggestions might you have for that? Do you have any suggestions around like boundaries in this type of dynamic, or any way to keep it so that it's not impacting anyone's mental health?
So I'm glad you asked that question. Yeah, see, everybody always thinks they can beat the system. So I had a case like this. So me and you, we got a booty call. All right. Me and Dr. Liz, we meet every Thursday. It's great. We both shoot to the moon, all of this.
Sure.
Now, all of a sudden, Dr. Liz still kicking it with me, but Dr. Liz she meets this other guy. All of a sudden, she and him, but we still doing it or whatever, because you're sexually liberated. Okay. I got no problem. I mean, if that's who you are.
Sure.
But now I'm getting hot. I'm like, wait a minute. What's up? Because we had an agreement, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Or did we? Did we have an agreement?
That's the expectation piece, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And so as long as it worked for me, but if you tried to change the rules, because we didn't establish any rules, remember that. We just said, okay, we got this booty call, we're going to just enjoy each other. And so now you got somebody else. And then what I tell people is, see, therein lies the problem. Whenever your expectations are being met, okay, you're good. But as soon as, even in this type of relationship, we still have a relationship. This is still a type of relationship.
Yep.
And if you're going off with Joe Longleg over there, and you're doing it, and now you taking a little attention away from me, I'm feeling some kind of way about it. So the dynamics change. Mm-hmm. So I always tell people this, to go back to your original question. Let's establish what we're doing. Let's communicate. I don't care if we're just fucking, let's just say we're just fucking. You can fuck somebody else, I can fuck somebody else, and that's what it is. But communicating what you're thinking and all that. Because the one thing that I pride myself on is helping people be good at communication. I've become a great communicator in my marriage, whereas I wasn't. And I understand what communication truly is. It's not what you think. It's listening. It's getting your message across. It is communicating your message in a way that is effective, so the listener, the receiver, can actually hear your intended meaning. It's much more than just saying what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and that they can receive it. That it's done in a way that's sensitive to them, so that they're not immediately on the defense and they're not even hearing what you're saying at all. But I love that you're saying that no matter what the dynamic, so booty call, situationship, friends with benefits, it is still a relationship of sorts. And I love that you say that, because a lot of people, it's like, nope, no strings attached. I owe you nothing. Okay, but y'all are still humans. Like, it's still two humans interacting with whatever type of agreement that you have. And so the communication is still so important. And that if you're veering outside of whatever that agreement was, that you are discussing it. And I think that's crucial.
It is. So much so, shameless plug. I got to just shameless plug over here.
Yeah,
I have been working on an AI tool for the last 5 months, and I'm almost finished with it. My programmers, it's called Just Say It. And what it does is it helps people communicate better in relationships, dating, and in the workplace. So for instance, if you wanted to say something to me like, I hurt your feelings, you type it into my AI tool, how should I say this in a way that you hurt my feelings about this, this, and this. And my tool is going to spit out exactly what you can say.
That's incredible, especially because, and I'm sure you get this a lot, which maybe that's where it kind of came from. So many clients are like, can you just write me a script to do that? Can you just send me an email and tell me exactly what to say? And I'm like, no, but it sounds like you like that. That is so beneficial because it is often, we forget the I feel statements and we forget like all of that. That's incredible. So when are you thinking it's going to be done?
It should be, we're going to have the beta testing this month, probably near the end of the month. And be glad to send you a link and people can get on the waiting list. And yeah, so we put a lot of work into it. It's, it's a lot. So, but I just believe that no matter what type of relationship that we're in, that it still boils down to, we still need to communicate our needs, our desires, the things that we're feeling, all of those things.
Yep. So the main takeaway here being, if you want to stay with your booty call, have at it. Ain't no one judging you for that. But also make sure you are talking about the expectations around it and the specifics of the agreement. And I would say also with that, if you do recognize that maybe the feelings are getting lopsided or the investment's getting lopsided, things like that, then that's probably a good time to check in on, this might not be the best thing for my mental health. And then the flip side, if you want to transition out of that, and I love your point about that, then you have to act accordingly. You have to identify that's what you want and start to change behaviors and then still communicate. So would that be putting it in a nutshell for you?
I think that's putting the bow on it. So I got a question for you. All right. So you're in the dating pool. You're out here dating.
Well, yeah, unfortunately I am.
No, I got you. So what would you say that is, if you had to say one or two things that is keeping people from getting into meaningful relationships, what would you say the biggest thing that you're finding?
I think the biggest thing is the grass is always greener with, all, not just the dating apps, though that contributes, but social media and just the access that we have to so many humans in so many different areas, that I think that everyone's kind of waiting for that perfect fit, for that. And then they believe that, okay, well, I don't want to settle down here because what if there's something better over here? So I think that that's one of them. And then I would say the other one is just lack of emotional intelligence in general. And that's what often, that's what makes it a struggle for me when, when I'm talking to someone, if they're not asking questions back or their responses or, good God, I'm going to be single forever because of that.
Do you ever go into coach mode? When you're on a date?
Oh my gosh, I want to so bad. My ex-husband, he's a good friend of mine, the other day, he's like, why don't you just bring it to their attention that they're doing that? I'm like, because I'm not their damn coach. That's why.
They're not paying me for that, right. Oh, that's funny.
So that is so frustrating. But what is your take on that? Why do you think people stay single?
I think you hit the nail on the head, really. And I've been kind of just looking into this, but I think we have so many choices now. It's kind of like when you go to, I don't like the Cheesecake Factory because it's too many choices.
That menu, yeah.
It's too many choices. Mm-hmm. I think, dang, I can't make a choice because I think something's going to be better than the choice that I'm going to make. And then I'm always going to question the choice that I made.
Yeah.
I think so. I think you hit the head right on I think you hit the nail right. And then I also think that people want to judge other folk harsher than they judge themselves.
Sure.
Yeah. I just, what? He can't communicate well. Well, neither can you. Well, but he can't communicate well.
Yeah. And that's so true and with how much information is out now that's so accessible on relationships and all of the buzzwords that get thrown around. And
Oh,
so everyone,
gaslighting and
yeah.
there's so many other breadcrumbing. I hear this shit and I'm like, do y'all really know what you're saying? Do you know what you're saying?
Well, and then they're just everyone's just labeling everybody. And the reality is your fucked upness is just going to find somebody else's fucked upness, and you guys are going to work together, hopefully. Like that is the key. And I talk about that so often, like even myself, like we are all coming into it with something. We are all
Yes.
struggling with something. The
Yes.
main thing to look for is somebody with self-awareness and the ability to take accountability for whatever their fucked upness is, that they're willing to work on that. If you find that, like you've hit the jackpot.
I love that. That's self-awareness and emotional intelligence.
Yes, absolutely. So Coach Ken, where can people find you? How can people get in contact with you?
Well, I'm everywhere. You can find me I'm on all the social media platforms. All you got to do is at Coach Ken Canion, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. And or you can just hit me on my website at coachkencanion.com. And let's connect. I'm excited. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Yes, no, thank you so much for being here. This was such a fun conversation and very enlightening for myself included. So thanks again.
I appreciate it.
Thanks again, Ken, for joining me and for all that booty call knowledge. And thank you all for hanging out on Relatable Relationships Unfiltered. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, sign up for my newsletter, and find me on Instagram at Dr. Elizabeth Fedrick.